Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to Smith Tools and Purchase, Level Plain Poem, Vitali Z, Colton James, BG, Survive the Spin, FE Patriot, Thomas van der Zander, Chris Wouters, Sea Level Cultist, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, The Name's Burley, Jason Hornsby, JMels24, Unamento, Iron26, Endless, Retro Bill, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Hairy Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Rob W, Del West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Chow Young Cat, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Links to Patreon, as I say, are below this video. And with that, I will hand across to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
That's why you don't go to hospitals. I wait in the car when I take anybody.
You were? What did you say? Sorry, I was just setting up my camera.
You don't go to hospitals. Did you go somewhere and you got sick from being there?
Yeah, I think so.
I read? Or did I read it wrong?
I think so, yeah. So I've had a, ultrasound scan, and then in the area that they scanned me, or just below it, I've broken out in a really severe rash. So I called it what we have here in the UK, which is less than an emergency line 111. And they're like, you need to go to the A&E department immediately. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, my local doctor opens at 9. And they're like, no, you need to go immediately to A&E. Well, all right, okay. So I did.
Crazy.
Pardon?
It's crazy what's going on. We're getting hit with everything. You seem to be getting the brunt of it.
Yeah, I'm under a lot of stress.
I'm really starting to believe that the forces of darkness do not want this book to hit the presses. Very important, because it's going to open the eyes of a lot of Christians, and we can't have that.
Yeah, I mean, I said that to Brian. It's pretty much yesterday, or this morning, actually. So I woke up in pain, couldn't sleep. So I looked over at my iPad. I'm like, I wonder if there's anybody around. And Brian coincidentally had sent me a message. What did I say about the devil? Said life deals us what it does, and sometimes the devil gets his way, it seems. That's what I said to Brian yesterday.
It seems like right now, like he's got the upper hand, but it only seems that way.
It only seems that way. Things may work themselves out. I am optimistic that they will, Neil. Internally, at the very least. We will see. Right, can you... I need to go to the loo just before we set up, so can you just welcome the people in Discord?
Welcome, people in Discord. How is everybody? Everybody's great. Well, that's good to know you.
All is well.
That sounds like fisherman in a box to me.
Good to see you all this morning. Good to hear you too.
Good morning, fisherman. Good morning, Neil. Good morning, Dan.
Well, it goes like this. You're not promoting melted buildings. You're not promoting mud floods. You're not promoting nonsense. You're pointing out that the earth is actually flat. And we know it because it's measured that way. And when Christians come to that realization, they'll have a whole new outlook on everything. I'm sure the critical Christian crowd would agree with that. Once you find out, oh, I'm not in a spinning water ball.
Yeah, we can plant and water, but only the Spirit of God will bring them to the truth. But I would say there are many people out there doing a good job of planting and watering the truth. And yeah, there's only one way they'll come to this truth.
Yeah, God will give the increase, but once you got to get past the cog this, because what's stopping everybody is that they think that science has proven it. And once they come to realization that it has nothing to do with science, I think you're going to have a lot of eyes being opened. So you're doing a good work, promoting something that's factual, and the enemy don't like it.
Good afternoon.
Morning, Nathan.
Good morning, good
morning.
afternoon. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you all. Pleased to see you, considering I suggested in the Flat Earth debate, I was going to say Skype, it's actually Teams now, but the Teams group that we use, that there wouldn't be a show today, as I'm not particularly well. But doing a show doesn't really make me feel worse. It makes me feel more better, if I'm honest. More better being terrible English. But yeah, actually interacting with people, having a proper live show is a good thing. I enjoy this more than I do sitting miserably moaning about how ill I am. So I'd rather be doing a live show than not doing a live show, if that makes sense. Mainly because of the good people who surround me. Isn't that wonderful? How lovely you guys are. How you make me feel literally better.
Absolutely.
Man, I appreciate that.
Well, that and I've got Patreons and people send me super chats, so I do find myself feeling a little bit obliged to make a show. That is to say, when people financially support you and you've got a regular weekly show on a regular weekly time slot, it makes people a bit irritated. Neil, you'll attest to this, right? You get a bit narky when I don't do a show because there's an expectation, right?
I get very annoyed.
Indeedy. And so do, I'm sure, other people, because it becomes part of their routine. And I do appreciate that. You know, I understand that if you keep a routine going, people expect you to maintain it in a proper way. So, you know, doing it is going to be something I'm always going to try and do, even if I'm on death's door. Not that I'm on death's door, I'm just a bit ill, but there we go. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No, they say it's always refracted.
Then it's not geometric.
Correct.
Game over.
I mean, I said this to Brian the other day and he corrected me because I was saying that the potential for the black swan argument to become redundant is always there based on the fact that in the Earth curve mathematics you require parallel surface level and eye level. That is to say, you need to measure a horizontal distance and your altitude off surface level to plug those measurements off a flat Earth into the Earth curve maths. And when I was pointing this out to Brian, he's like, well, actually, no. When you are up against a globe-believing opponent, you still need to break down where their presupposition that they can utilise an Earth that's so biggy it's flatty to beg the question of sphericity, and then have a geometric sphere edge at 1.22 times the square root of the observer's measured height off a flat Earth. And if they're going to appeal to that, you need to be able to debunk it. And for that reason and that reason alone, the black swan argument will always be prevalent to a certain degree. So he was quick to correct me in terms of its use. And that got me chatting to him about Geron's use of it when he was discussing that very subject prior to going back on the ball with Brenda. And I'm saying, well, if he is a shill, he's a shill that's got enough autonomy to pull that out of the hat when it's needed to shut down Brenda. And he did. Now, QE's correction to that shutting down of Brenda in my vernacular was to say, well, he didn't use it correctly. And Brian pointed out that he used it well enough to shut her down. So, if he is a shill, he's got, like I say, enough autonomy to do what's needed when needed if the person in front of him is irritating. Along the same lines, I was actually discussing, again, Jaren with Craig. Click OK, who's not on the panel, but typically is. And Craig's very, very helpful to me. He's often doing work for me for free. And he did today. He fixed a microphone. Not that I want to be selling microphones anymore. It's just needs must until the book comes out. I have to because I'm very, very poor. So running several jobs, running my Patreon, doing all the YouTube commentary stuff, selling microphones and writing a book is probably the reason I'm ill. I'm just doing too much. Back 6 months ago, I was saying that I was doing too much before selling microphones, and before writing the book, same thing. I'm saying I'm doing too much. Well, I want to keep the show going, and I more importantly want to keep the lights on. You know what I mean? I want to keep my 2 mortgages paid. So, needs must. As the devil drives, as that's what we were talking about in the pre-show. But anyway, back to Jaren. Craig pointed out something quite interesting to me, which is to say, if you put yourself... Craig's obviously got more empathy than me. Here he is. If you put yourself in Jaren's shoes, he's doing the flat earth thing and not being massively successful. Now, just to put a case in point, he was boasting about his publicity that he was getting and his views that he was getting in his subscriber count to me. This is again before Antarctica. And I had to point out that I got quite a considerable number more views than him, which annoyed him greatly because he wanted to justify it based on, gathering up a larger number of views per video. I'm like, well, okay, but I've still got more views than you. And I won't bore you with the justification he gave in terms of the maths that he broke down. But what Craig said, sorry to speak about you while you're here, Craig, in the third person, I know you can hear me, was he's not necessarily a shill or, I've forgotten the term that Irish girl used. Like authorised propagandist. I can't remember the term she used. But anyway, he said it's more likely that if you were in his shoes and you're on a plane with McToon and Dave McKeegan and whoever else flying out to Antarctica, and they're saying, well, we've got it easy, we can buy cars and houses, pay our bills, and, we only put out 1 video a week, it's dead easy. And you can imagine hearing that and going, yeah, that really does appeal. Rather than the rhetoric and argument and integrity and honesty, you think, well, I want to sell more T-shirts. And, that's a means to an end, isn't it? So when you put it in those terms, or when Craig put it in that term to me, or those terms to me, I did have to raise an eyebrow and go, you know what, you have got a point.
A point of what? Was anybody there to hear the conversations going on the plane? Are we talking hypothetically here? Because he's a damn shill, and stop making excuses for him.
Oh, it's all Craig. I blame Craig immediately. It's his fault. Just having a bit of empathy for somebody who's in a similar position. I can't sit here and moan constantly about how poor I am and then see someone like Jaren and go, well, obviously he's doing all right. Well, no, he wouldn't be punting his T-shirts and all the rest of the stuff that he's been trying to do unsuccessfully as a flat earther.
He dug his own grave. He did not want to stay the course. I don't even think he was ever a flat earther.
Well, he's always into popularity, right? The fact that he wanted to justify his own popularity to me based on views, to them have me go, well, I've got more than you. Obviously didn't sit well with him, because that's how he wants to justify his existence, based on views. You know what I mean? So if that's how you see the world, and your popularity is the most important thing to you, for me it isn't. Being on a knife edge is irritating, but I am on a knife edge that is most of the time, not always, on the right side of that knife edge. That is to say, I do keep the lights on. Yes, I've got outstanding debts and bills and 2 mortgages, and you know what I mean? That's not great. And yeah, I've got to take on lots of other jobs to keep the lights on alongside my YouTubing. But would I risk my integrity just to get more views? No. But Jaren would. I mean, no doubt.
I'm not making excuses.
That's how I.
Hold on, Sensual. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to make excuses for Jaron. He's an idiot, whichever way. But I was just saying his integrity. But he's an entertainer, and if your jokes aren't funny, you change your tune so you get more people to listen. Or if you don't play the right music, play some different music. But it's not your own anymore.
We offered him many of opportunity to get on board. They did not want to discuss the things. The exact words were, "We won't be listening to FED." It's your own fault, buddy.
But I completely agree in terms of the decision to sell out is what you're describing. If you look at bands from the 60s, many of them were deeply unsuccessful until they appealed to decent writers to produce music on their behalf that wasn't theirs so that they could sound like the Beatles and compete with the British invasion bands. So they sold out. They're like, well, let's give up what's unique about us as a band. What can we do that makes us sound like them? And then suddenly they've got a chart-topping hit that's knocking off the Beatles off the top spot in the hit parade. Why? Well, because they sold out and they'd bought music to produce that isn't them or change their band name entirely. But then you're a sellout. You're not doing it for the being unique aspect of it. And it's very rare that somebody who is completely unique will break through in that way. I mean, I can think of a few artists from when I was growing up and interested in bands. People like Bjork, incredibly unique, very off the wall, and popular for it. But she didn't sell out. I mean, towards the end, yeah, she was getting I think she was even with him at the time, but a guy called Goldie to produce music with her. But she was just doing what she wanted to do. And if you ever listen to her in interviews, that's her attitude, which is to say, Bjork's attitude was, if you're a woman in the charts, you're expected to be feminine. Full stop. That's it. That's what's expected of you. So to be quite strong and off the wall and outrageous and playful and all the things that Bjork is, wasn't expected of a woman. So people would turn their nose up at her and go, what are you doing? Why are you behaving like this? Like it's something out of the ordinary, when she's just being a person and being herself. Now, for her, worked out quite nicely. I would honestly say that in terms of live performances, the number one spot for me, I've been to see a lot of live bands, Bjork easily outranked everybody. She was by far and away the best live performance I have ever seen, bar none. I can't think of anybody who came close to Bjork. She was just absolutely outstanding live. Superb show. Everything about it was fantastic. Fireworks, lasers, the music was awesome. The production was outstanding. Her voice was excellent. The sound of the band was awesome. Just everything about it was great. But you've got to be one in a million and succeed as one in a million to be like Bjork. Now, is Jaron like Bjork? No, he's kind of boring. You know what I mean? So he's not going to break through in the same way as anti-flat earth brethren have broken through because they're algorithmically favoured. What he probably doesn't appreciate is he's never going to get that algorithmic favouritism. You know what I mean? Just changing sides means that you'll have a few people who will treat you as an ex-flat earther novelty for a short period. And that's about it. But I can imagine, as Craig suggested, that you're being sold the world quite figuratively and literally when you're on a plane with these people talking about how they're on easy street, living on easy mode because they're algorithmically favoured when anybody searches this subject.
Well, when he was a flat earther, he was more whatever. He was more favored over you guys and stuff. Because when I first found the subject in like mid 2018, when you would type for it on YouTube, you would get all the McTunes and the fight the flat earthers and all that. And then Jaron and Dave Weiss would start popping up, and I didn't ever find FED searching through that until I started seeing it in the comments or other people just mention you guys in passing. Then that's how I came about. You guys were never ever in the search results. But Jaron most definitely was. I'm like, oh look, this is actually a flat earther. He's not a guy making fun of the subject. He's the first flat earther I've seen while searching where he's actually, So he was favored a bit then. He's never going to be on, like, now that he's turned to the globe and stuff. He's not going to be with them though.
Well,
I kind of
from experience,
almost feel
we saw
bad
people
for him
like...
because his show's crashed. It's bad now.
Well, so I understand, and the same thing happened to Ranty Flat Earth. Ranty changed sides, so
yeah.
did Jose. Where are they now? You know, other than a minor blip when Ranty did a couple of popular videos about Amber Heard. It's like, do you know does Ranty suddenly get pushed up the algorithm because he's turned back to the ball? No. He offered a couple of people temporary pain relief. Look, we got one back. Oh, yeah, well done. Swing on. Marvellous for you. So what? Does it suddenly mean he's algorithmically favoured? No, again, he's very, very boring. Now me, I realised that I wasn't getting algorithmic favouritism, so I just worked harder. Hence I can turn around to Jared and go, I still got more views than you, even though you were showing up in the search lists. You could have worked a bit harder, and then you would have had the popularity, but he wasn't tenacious enough. Now me, I am. You know, I'm hungry for the views. Even when I'm not being promoted through YouTube, I'll ask my audience to share my videos. I'll do that right now. Please share the show on Facebook and Twitter if you haven't done so already. I haven't checked how many people are watching. Probably hardly any, because nobody gets presented my material. But for the 29 people that are watching this show, they can click on the share button, stick it on their Facebook and Twitter, and get others to engage in the conversation with somebody with a bit of personality, as opposed to somebody who's dry as a nun's fanny. That's Jaren and Shane.
Did you just say someone who dries a nun's fanny?
Is as dry as.
Okay, got it.
Sorry, I shouldn't be so crude.
Yeah, because you guys over there use fanny for a different part. I got you. Because in the United States, your fanny means your butt. Sorry. I never heard that expression. That's funny.
Yes, I won't crude it up even further. It slipped out because it's just a figure of speech I use. You know what dry means, though, personality-wise?
Right.
Right. Jaren and
Gotcha.
Ranty are both very dry in terms of their personality.
Indeed. What I'd like to know is, who is Jaren's audience now? Who are they?
Anybody who watches. I don't know. I don't know if he gets less or more algorithmic favoritism since going back to the ball. I would doubt it. You know, that stuff gets ingrained into your channel. And if you've built up 100 and whatever thousand flat earth subscribers, you know, I'm sure there is a percentage of ballers that are still subscribed to him. But are you suddenly going to outstrip Simon Dan because you've changed sides? Like I said earlier, you're just going to be a novelty. Oh, look, I've seen it. Don't get me wrong, I've not watched the show, but I saw the thumbnail. You've got Professor Dave with him on the show. We may have even covered it. But he's just a novelty, isn't he? I'm here with ex-Flat Earther Jaren. So, did you want to become Baller Jaren? Because you're never going to be. It's always going to be ex-Flat Earther Jaren. And that only lasts so long. All right, so you switch sides. Good for you. Is he suddenly the subject of massive attention? No, of course not. If anything, from what I'm being told, it's got worse for him. Like, less people are watching. And maybe that'll turn around. Maybe he will get some algorithmic love and he won't have to work as hard as I to suddenly outstrip me in views, and eventually he might do so. Who knows? But based on what I'm being told, I don't think so.
Well, before he went to Antarctica, like when they were talking about it, it was a hot subject. So even people who weren't flat earthers were some people were aware of, oh, there's a bunch of globers and flat earthers going to Antarctica. So like the weeks and months leading up to that, his live streams they would have like 4,000 people in his chat. Maybe not quite that much, but it was a lot. And then once he changed and flipped over to the other, now he has like 20, which is whatever. But if you notice, it's mostly people that are, huh?
I just can't quite believe my ears. He's telling me he gets 20 people watching on a channel with 100 and something thousand subscribers.
Yeah, when I was in there the other night, it was now he didn't have any guests. It was just him talking, like he was just doing a solo show with just himself, and there was like 20 people in there, and I'm like, I've never seen his shows that dead, because even like 2 years ago, like he would still have like 160 in his live stream.
But that's
because he does get favored.
That's crappy though, isn't it?
Yeah, he's crashed and burned.
No, I mean that's crap in general. I mean, at my peak, I was getting 300 people watching live. Now,
yeah,
38 people currently watching. But if you're saying that he's even lower than that, he's like got 20 live viewers, that's abysmal. I almost feel sorry
It
for him.
is. You kind of have to, but in the same way, But the thing is, if you read the people that are in his live chat, There's a couple of Globers who go, "I'm so glad this guy's finally telling the truth," and then there's a couple of ex-flat earthers who probably use his arguments, who would get crushed on a daily basis when they were trying to talk about the subject in real life, who are no longer flat earthers now, and they're praising him for like. So he's got a handful of people from Globers and former flat earthers who believed the Earth was flat based off of what he would say. All thinking, well, at least this guy's truthful. Like that's kind of his whole shtick now. But it's just a handful of people. It's not a lot.
Check it out. I'm sorry to
That's what I mean.
change the subject slightly. I just got a super chat. Well, not even a super chat. It's a PayPal, so I can shout this out while I'm live. Shout out to Dan for hitting me up on PayPal while we're live, so I can actually shout you out in a proper way. So thank you very much for the PayPal, Dan. Really appreciate the support. Also, we will have potentially somebody joining the show. I'm just looking for his email, but a dude got in touch and said he'd like me to have me on his show, and he's a flatty, but I was like, if I do, I'll have to charge you. Like literally in poor health because of the amount of work I'm doing. There aren't enough hours in the day. And I did explain this to him. I'm like, look, I haven't got enough time to come on your show. However, for $200 I can. You know what I mean? So it's kind of mercenary, but by the same token, it's like I've got to be a realist. I don't have enough time to do it. And what I am doing is literally causing me health problems because I'm just up against it with so much on. Even today, I was late starting because I was boxing up microphones and shipping them out and testing them. And as I said earlier, I was down at Craig's getting one of them repaired. I don't want to pronounce this guy's name wrong. He calls himself Sam, but it's Shmuel. Shmuel? Is that Shmuel? How would you say that? Jewish?
You'd say Samuel.
It's just Samuel. Who was that?
It was Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So I am going to call him Sam. But he suggested that I go and chat to him on his show. And I said, look, there is still a free option. So if he does happen to join while we're live, I would prefer to clear the airwaves for him just so he can have a little chat with me. Because he was so polite and pleasant. But his channel is called, I might as well shout it out, Flat Earth Renaissance. And I told him it didn't sit necessarily well with me in terms of if he was intending to badmouth David Weiss and Mark Sargent. I'm like, well, David Weiss is a former friend of mine, so you might all in the audience go, hang on a second, you slag Dave Weiss off all the time. And I'm like, well, yeah, I do, but for my own reasons. When it's someone else's reasons, I might not necessarily want to partake in that when it's somebody who I used to be a friend of. Mark's never done a thing wrong. Now, this guy's under the impression that he's... what did I call them earlier, Craig? Licensed... What are they called? Licensed critics. Is that right? Is that what that Irish girl called them? Licensed
Not controlled
critics.
opposition.
Basically controlled opposition, but I just think licensed critic sounds so much better. It just sounds more professional. You know, at the bottom end of that rung, you've got shill. Middle of the road is controlled opposition, which she also uses, that Irish girl. And licensed critic is it just sounds more posh. Sounds more proper. Anyway, he's under the impression that people like Dave Weiss are licensed critics / controlled opposition. Same goes for Mark Sargent. And I'm like, I don't know if I agree. And based on that was kind of where I was going with that discussion about Craig and I having a chat earlier this morning. That sits in line with that. It's like, are they shills? Probably not. You know, they're just people. Now, I can't remember which inmate it was that I was watching that came up with this saying. Not JD Delay. There's another guy, jewel thief, that's out and not in jail anymore. And he says there's no such thing as bad people. There's just bad decisions that people make. And he's kind of pointing out that you can look at a lot of inmates and go, well, that's a bad guy. And his point is, well, no, most people, generally speaking, if you ignore narcissists and psychopaths, are good people, but a lot of them will make bad choices and bad decisions, and you can't necessarily just tar someone as being a bad person because they've made a few bad choices. Now, that goes for anybody, us in our group, as well as external to our group, if you're talking about Mark or Jaron or Dave or whoever. It's like, that doesn't automatically make them a shill. And that's kind of Jaron's rhetoric since coming back. Oh, I've come back and gone back on the ball and everyone's calling me a shill now. You're like, yeah, I can empathise. You shill. Nope, no one's laughing. Well, that went down like a lead balloon. 44 people watching. Somebody's definitely smashed the share button. Thank you very much indeed, whoever it is that smashed the share button. If you've just joined us, welcome. Please share the show. We are actually live, surprisingly. I had not intended to be live today. I was going to just schedule another show. I'll see how I feel tomorrow. If we do get another live show, then brilliant stuff. But yeah, so this Sam guy might join the show. He might not. We'll see if he does. And if he does, I'll see if I can provide him with some clear airwaves. But if one of my mods from the YouTube chat wants to dig out Flat Earth Renaissance, then I think that's what he's called. It's going purely from memory. But yeah, dig out his YouTube channel and post it, and hopefully he'll get a few subscribers. But he seemed to lean, he's far more religious than I, and when he asked me to do the show, I was like, I'm not particularly religious. Yes, I gave my heart to Jesus when I was a kid. Do I cover that on my show? No. And he was like, well, neither am I. I'm like, yeah, you are. I've seen your channel. But there we go. We'll see if he joins. Speaking of people joining, hello, One Deck. Hello, Refracted.
Hello, Nathan. Hello, guys. Hope you're all okay.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm a bit miserable, but I'm all right.
How did you get on yesterday? Everything, you're back home now and everything, yeah?
No, I went back into hospital today.
Oh, my God.
So no, not really. But there we go. That's something I'm not going to moan about on a live show.
All right.
Like I said at the beginning of the intro, I prefer to be live with you guys chatting. That's more fun than being miserable or just go in bed, which I should do. So yeah. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. I've had a busy morning. I've only just sat down from 7:30 this morning. I've been just been doing some difficult jobs this morning, so I've just had a quick sandwich. So I've just got back in my work van, and I thought I'll tune into the guys, see if Nathan's doing a show, and here I am.
You wouldn't happen to have that poem, because I interrupted it last time.
I might have it. Yeah, somewhere.
Oh, okay. Well, just give me a nod if you do, and I'll clear the airwaves, because we didn't get a clear rendition, or mainly because of me. But yeah, now
no, what it was, I got to a certain, I had it scribbled down on this pad that I'm trying to open now, and I tried to turn the page, and I couldn't turn the page. So I paused for longer than I should have done, and you thought I'd finished.
Yeah, precisely, which is a real shame.
Yeah. Here it is. You want me to go?
Yeah, can everyone just pop yourselves on mute if you're not One Deck? Good.
Sea level. Sorry. I mean mean sea level. The average level base, just in case we need to measure above the surface of this place. Height put into place above and below the 0 degree base. Elevation now in place. Cartography, navigation, guiding the human race. Sea level. Sorry, I mean mean sea level. The standard basis for aviation, travel, straight level flight, that's right. Referencing altitude, day and night. Sea level. Sorry, I mean mean sea level. One continuous body of water, seeking level throughout the world.
that it?
I'm done.
I didn't want to interrupt again. Awesome. Absolutely brilliant. As you do it more and more, you'll do the mean, like, as a double. Because it sounds like it needs to flow off like, sorry, I mean sea level. You know what I mean? It needs to be a bit more rapid, the one after the next. I mean. Jack?
Yeah, the reason I did that, I explained it the other day. One of my normal friends. When I say normal friends, I mean just a normal person who believes he lives on a globe. So not so normal then. Yeah, I had that conversation about, we got onto sea level and you know, being level basically for all heights measured on Earth is what's used. In his head, he's not in this arena. He doesn't argue the toss about the globe or flat Earth. He's not really interested. But in his head, his rebuttal was, well, these different tide levels. So obviously, he can't. You know, he was saying because these different levels, where we get the mean level from, he was presuming that meant it was curved.
But because there's an average of all of the different levels, that means it's curved. That makes no frigging sense at all.
Exactly. But I could see his head. I kept saying, you know, it's level. Sea level is level. This is just the average level. It's called mean sea level. It's level. Yeah, but he couldn't get it round. You could see his brain like working overtime I mean, and it's not so difficult to understand, is it? This is a grown-ass man I'm talking to. And he was trying to convince himself that, well, it can't be level, obviously, because, you know, it's got different levels, so it must mean it's this is
He
the
thought you was
situation.
being mean when you mean sea level.
Yeah,
so we got into this. It's mean sea level. So I just that's where that's come from, you know, because I was saying sea level, and then we was getting onto, well, it's a mean sea. So I kept apologizing. Well, I mean sea level. So that's where that's from, anyway.
But you're right. Essentially, there could be a double meaning to it. So when you say, I mean sea level, you can take that to be mean persona and mean the average. Or mean alternative meaning sea level being the average. So there's lots of different meanings that you can read into it if you hear it rattled off quickly. I mean sea level.
Yeah. That's
brilliant.
Exactly why I did it.
I love it. It's excellent. Just do a quick shout out to BG. Thank you very much for the super chat. $50. Really appreciate the support. Thank you so much. I don't know what that is. Is it a transformer? It looks like a hippo on a gaming chair turning into a robot. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the support. Also, 56 people watching. Definitely someone's smashed the share button. So if you haven't, please do so. It's only a couple of clicks. Stick it on your favourite social media platform, be that Bebo or MySpace or Facebook or X or whatever it is you use. Smash that share button now, if you've not done so already. If you have, really appreciate you smashing the share button. That's the only reason we've got 56 people watching. It would be like as terrible as Jaren's numbers if it wasn't for the dedicated audience that love to be around this show. So thank you very much. Really do appreciate it.
Hey, Nathan, I think I mentioned last week on one of the shows, like when we was talking about where we're all up to in this conversation now, you know, regarding how the globe came to be from flat Earth angle measurements. And, you know, when we talk about measuring inside hell and stuff like that. And I said to you, I said, it's so much to take in. And if somebody, even a normal Joe, I mean, you just heard my story about sea level with somebody. So listening to that, it could blow your mind away. But then I did notice it a little bit. I listened to a little bit of your podcast, the Sunday Flat Earth thing. I can't remember the name, sorry.
That's okay. Before you carry on, I'll do a proper shout out. So that's Richard. That's 007 channel. So the way it's spelled, double and then OH and then the number 7. That's the name of the channel that I was on, just to give him a proper plug. So go and subscribe to double, spelt double, and then O, spelt OH, and then the number 7. That's 007 channel, which is what we're about to discuss. Go ahead.
And there was a point in there where you got right into the spiel, like we just talk about on here every day and understand exactly as you're saying it. We can envisage what you're saying, and you was going through this, and I could hear that there was a deadly silence sometimes after you'd finished, and I was thinking, I don't think they've got a clue what Nathan's talking about or able to comprehend what he's saying. I could, we can on here, but that's what we're saying. It sounds absolutely bizarre and unbelievable when you start to explain where the globe came from in the first place. It blows your mind away. It's very difficult to comprehend if you've not been involved with it from a certain time. And I noticed that when you was talking on the.
Someone left a comment to that exact regard underneath the video. They're like, this guy is suggesting that he wants to be open-minded and keep himself pure in terms of his perception of the world, but then when it comes to him not wanting to relinquish atmosphere, you're like, well, yeah, from that point of view, he's not necessarily up to date with the flat earth debate. And I regularly watch 007 because it's more conspiratorial. I see it as entertainment. It keeps me amused. And I joined because he was like, Nathan often comes along to this show, but I don't think he actually hangs around. He just says hello in the chat and buggers off. I'm like, no, I do not. I just put your show on and then do other things. Doesn't mean I'm sat in front of the chat stream, because I've normally got it on my iPad and it's like a portable radio. I can just move it around the flat. So I put him on, listened to him. And when he said that, I'm like, well, today, by coincidence, albeit with the kids making a crap ton of noise, I am actually sat in front of the computer just by pure chance. So I'm like, well, I can actually join. And then my wife was like, I'm going to take the kids to the library. Do you want anything? And I'm like, well, it's going to be silent for a few minutes. Maybe I will join. And I did. And partway through, not just Roxy and Rich, it's more just generally, there was another guy on the panel, and he even said at one point when I'm going through the scientific method, it just sounds like mumbo jumbo. Now, fortunately, he said that when I was going through the scientific method, which is semi-complicated. It's not that complicated. But if you're completely oblivious to it, then it can seem more complex than it is, as I break it down with suppositional causal influences and words of that nature. You can go, what? Suppositional causal influencer? What does that mean? You're like, well, obviously it means independent variable. I'm like, independent variable? What does that mean? And you're like, the thing that you vary, you're going to wiggle it, right? The thing you think causes the effect. But unless you're constantly dumbing it down, and I don't want to dumb it down. I've been taught by the best. QE's taught me the scientific method in a way that I can pass it on to next man in the most comprehensive manner I can muster. Now, will I dumb it down to a certain extent so people can understand it? Yes. But it isn't simple. Having a zero difference result alongside the alternative is not something that you're immediately going to get if I break it down once on a live stream. It's there's no expectation that you immediately get it. I had to be told it 10 times before I started to understand it. So I can't expect next man to just immediately get it when they're under the impression that science is something it very much isn't, like melting bricks or whatever.
I agree, Nathan. I think the guy who was running the show, sorry, what's his name?
Rich.
Yeah. So at one point in the 3 questions that the lady was asking, he was sort of stating that we'll never know the size of the Earth or what shape it is. And you interrupted and then went in to say, well, it has been measured, elevation angles to and from Polaris. I think you'd already been over this anyway. I think I don't know if that guy is a flat earther. I think he is he?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you stopped them in the track saying, well, what you're saying, the Earth's not been measured. We've got maps. We've got, it's been measured, but it all starts from an elevation angle to and from Polaris. And I could hear his silence and his brain ticking, even though you've been over it previously, I think. So even he was sort of musing over that, not really understanding, in the first instance, the Earth is measured flat. It's as simple as that. And this is how it's been done, and this is how it's been measured. This is where we've got our maps from. This is how we navigate the Earth.
Well, I thought I'd be at loggerheads with Roxanne. So going into it, I thought, I know where Roxanne stands on this subject. She's a anti-glober. And my tact was to say, we've fallen into this trap. And the trap is explaining to our globe Earth brethren in the same pond, just with all the views, how their globe should work. And we shouldn't be doing that because it assists them. If we all brush past north, south, east and west as being flat, if we all brush past areas of equal elevation for latitude, if we all brush past horizontal distance measurements for trig, all of the things that are required to build a globe based on flat Earth measurements, then you can start arguing about, well, this item in the distance is X number of miles. Ignore that it's measured flat and start plugging those linear flat distances into the Earth curve calculator as linear flat Earth distance measurements. And then say, well, if I'm this high off a flat Earth, that's your altitude measurement measured from surface level or sea level, then this flat distance level means there's a geometric horizon. Now, if you ignore the bits that I've added in, you get your typical anti-ball rhetoric from a so-called flat earther. Now, with Roxanne, she was like, never wanted to call herself a flat earther. She just said, well, I know the Earth's not a sphere, and I want to peddle that out to the people I talk to, explaining them how Earth's not a sphere. They're like, no. We were duped as flat earthers into doing that, and it serves them far more than it serves us. Because our argument is a lot more simple. Now, in my humble opinion, that's why I've only got 69 people watching. Nice. Please share the show. But that's because our current rhetoric is, no, I'm not going to argue with you about the distance to geometric horizon when the distance to geometric horizon is measured flat. I can just talk about how it's measured flat. What's that? You want to take my flat Earth measurement and talk about where a geometric horizon should be? No, you need to get on your knees and accept that we're going to measure Earth flat with the horizontal distance measurement for you to then put it through a calculator that requires you measure your height off flat Earth to then say where a geometric horizon would be below the surface level you just measured flat with horizontal distance measurements and altitudes. For me, I can stop when we've got flat Earth measurements off sea level, flat Earth linear horizontal distances. That's it. That's all I need. We're measuring Earth flat for everything. Why do I need to justify where a geometric horizon isn't? And then when they say, well, it's because Earth's so big, we measure it flat. I say, so we measure it flat then? And then again, it draws a complete conclusion to the conversation. Like with Simon Dan, we don't only measure it flat. Well, why would you say that? Well, because he'd measured it flat 1,000 times with his participating audience members, hadn't he? So he's got to justify why we don't only measure it flat. Well, in actuality, we do only measure it flat. That's how Earth gets measured in every single example without exception. Hence the heavy degree of censorship. There is no debate, is there? And that's what I was telling them. Roxy being my primary focus, because up until that point she's been, well, the Earth's not a sphere because... It's like, forget Earth not being a sphere. To believe in a sphere, you've got to build that sphere based on measurements that you can back calculate into the flat Earth that it is and make it function with those measurements of a flat Earth. So the back engineering means you've got to start by measuring Earth flat and then suggest with those measurements that you've got a ball. Well, if you can ignore all of it, the flat Earth measurements that is, you can argue with a so-called flat earther about where a geometric horizon would be. Make sense?
Totally. And like you say, it just gets it right down to the bones of, and it takes all the crap out of the conversation. But what beats me is the people like Jeren, Dave, what's he called? Weiss. I was trying to think what we call him. I can't think what they
Big
call
Ball
him.
Dave?
What's he called?
Big Ball Dave. Because he said to
Ball.
one of his interviews, to one of his interviewers, well, it could be a really big ball, end quote. Big Ball Dave Weiss.
Yeah, so and Whitsitt, a few others. I don't even know. I'd probably throw Mark Sargent into this, and the other guy. We could throw all of them into it. You've had conversations with these guys. They know what we're saying. Why haven't they jumped on board with this? It's over.
Maybe they don't know. If we're censored from the general public, why wouldn't we be censored from Mark and Dave and all the rest of it? I wouldn't. necessarily pin myself as watching every bit of Mark Sargent's materials. I was only chatting with him over the weekend by coincidence about something completely unrelated and just having a bit of a laugh with him. But, you know, lots of people think Mark Sargent's a shill, and I don't have any expectation that he's going to keep up to date with the flat earth debate. And in the past, when he's done things that I've disapproved of, I've noted them with him, and he's quickly changed his rhetoric based on what I've said without any pushback or, without, you know, just very cordial, pleasant, amicable. And that's how Mark's always been. But he still gets called a shill. Now, maybe he is, I doubt it. And he's of the same opinion about others. So one of the people we were discussing was Patricia Steer, because Mark was very much involved with Patricia Steer at one stage. And his attitude was, well, I don't know if she's an agent, but I wouldn't rule it out, but just don't know. And you're like, well, yeah, that's a very sort of even-handed way of looking at it. In other words, I wouldn't put it past her. I can't say that because I don't know. And you think, well, that's fair enough then.
But what I'm saying is the conversations you've had with in the past with these guys, once they realise what latitude is and how it's measured and what's required and sea level, these key points within this, you know, arena and the discussion, these are the main points. Now we've got down to the measurement of Earth.
I mean, I'll appeal to my audience, as you've said it, right? So there's obviously flatties amongst us that have been around since year dot, Mark being one of them. And maybe he doesn't know that there is no debate. The debate ended a couple of years ago when we figured out how Earth was measured. Flat, in all instances and without exception. Now, that's not limited to, as Wandex just alluded to, areas of equal elevation, angle measurements off surface level to Polaris to create the latitude system that then gets transposed onto a ball after measuring Earth flat. But also, as we covered up until this point, horizontal distance measurement parallel to the sky level that you're measuring for these altitude angles, but also the horizontal distance measurement used for altitudes of mountains, aka Al-Biruni, or straight and level flight, parallel with sea level. All of these methodologies are flat Earth prerequisite measurements of Earth that require it be flat in order to build the ball. So that in order to be building a ball bit isn't necessarily my main focus when it's surveyed flat by everyone, including people like Simon Dan, who's then got to apologise and say things like, quote, it's not only measured Earth flat, or we don't only measure Earth flat, end quote, Simon Dan. Well, in reality, yes, we do. What he's calling locally flat is just Earth measurement, and you can only measure what you can see. Therefore, any measurement of Earth to build upon, survey, is flat. Local is how much you can survey. The vast expanses that we deal up to maybe 100 miles of flatness that then get built on is just us measuring and surveying Earth as a flat plane exactly as it's surveyed and built upon. There's no ambiguity about this. There's apologetics that come from our opponents. But maybe people like Mark don't know that the debate ended a couple of years ago when we figured out that all measurements of Earth, without exception, are flat. So maybe let Mark Sargent know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Hopefully someone will put a link to one of Mark Sargent's videos in the live stream chat. And some of my audience can say, go and watch this particular Flat Earth debate, number 2406. And at the 45-minute mark, they start talking about you, Mark Sargent, and how I personally haven't gone to Mark Sargent as an individual and said, by the way, Mark, the debate's over. There never was a debate. There was just a very carefully orchestrated, shilly behaving methodology of us talking about how Earth's not a ball, so our opponents could utilise flat Earth prerequisite elevation angles and flat surface level measurements of Earth's surface to say it is. And we'd brush past them in every instance over the last 8 years where we would accept north, south, east and west being described as flat Earth only directionalities, or flat Earth horizontal distance measurements to plug through Earth curve calculations, without actually pointing out that you're going to need a flat Earth for this measurement of Earth's surface, for your height off a flat Earth, for your distance on a flat Earth, for your horizontal distance measurement for trig, for your straight and level flight, for your sea level, all of which are utilised on a daily basis when measuring Earth flat. If you don't know that, you don't know that. But now he does. If you can let Mark Sargent know, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me with a polite comment on one of the links that my moderation team puts into the live stream chat. Hopefully Mark will listen at the 45-minute mark of this video if someone directs him to it. And he'll then know what we know, which is Earth was, is, and always will be measured flat by everyone in all circumstances and without exception. Even if you believe you're on a ball, you will require Earth to be measured flat. Because it is. Ask Simon Dan. What's that, Simon Dan? We don't only measure Earth flat, end quote Simon Dan. Why did he have to say that? Well, because he just told 1,000 people to go out and measure Earth's surface level for an angle measurement to the sun. Just like Al-Biruni or Aristophanes or anybody else that's measuring Earth for use with elevation angle measurements off surface level. You'll need a surface level or you can't call it an angle. Now, Dan knows this. So he's got to apologise for how flat he's measuring Earth and for how flat every single one of his 1,000 participants is measuring Earth by saying we don't only measure Earth flat. Well, no, Dan, you do only measure Earth flat. You did only measure Earth flat, Dan. All 1,000 participants during your so-called experiment all measured Earth flat without exception. So we only measure Earth flat. That's why Dan's got to apologise. And that's all we'll ever get from this point forward. Apologetics for how, well, yeah, we can measure it flat because it's so big. What, big and flat? Yeah, we know that's how we measure it. Ooh, got boxes arriving. Been saying for about, 6 months, I won't buy any more microphones. The book will come out soon, and it just isn't coming out, right? It's delay after delay after delay, so I keep buying microphones, and I just don't want to. I'm kind of getting sick of it, but like I say, needs must. I've got to pay the bills somehow. Now, obviously, when people are sending me $50 super chats and $50 PayPals, that definitely helps. So thank you so much to the people who supported the show today. I really appreciate it. But unfortunately, I do still have to flog microphones. It's just the unfortunate reality of being poor. Yeah, I've got a couple of boxes, so we'll see how see what they look like. I might unbox them live. We'll see how we get on. If someone can keep the conversation going, if not, obviously I won't.
I mean, I can talk, but I don't think there's anyone to talk to.
Well, I was going to say the thing with Mark Sargent is he tends to get along with pretty much everybody. Even when Brian went on the show a couple months ago, they were super cordial and friendly with each other. And then if Dave Weiss goes on there, they act like old buddies. He doesn't really ever have a bad word. Like, it's weird. It's almost like he's a piece of bread and all these other flat earthers are different types of soups. And he kind of just pairs well with all of them. Like, he gets along pretty much good with everyone. And then whenever FED does get mentioned on the show, he always has good things to say. I don't think he's a bad dude. Half of his show, it's not even about flat Earth. He does a whole thing where he just goes over news headlines and whatnot and talks about, the Russian-Ukraine war for 10 minutes or politics and stuff. So I don't think he's a benevolent person, personally.
I've
never met him.
Between me, I wasn't suggesting he was a shill when I was sort of speaking to Nathan, describing.
I wasn't. Yeah,
there's a lot. Yeah. I'm just saying. I'm just keeping the conversation going in a way, but I wasn't suggesting that. But I don't listen to him a lot, to tell you the truth, really. But now and again, I catch a little bit of one of his shows, and he might be talking about something that is really irrelevant to the shape of the Earth. I don't know, Admiral Byrd or ice walls or stuff like that. Which, if that's what you want to talk about, that's fine. But like you say, he might be having that. He might want to go down that road and keep that sort of thing going for people who are coming into it or whatever. But if you're just talking about the geometry of Earth, then would you be talking about measurements? And I'm sure that all the people that I've just mentioned, including Eric DeBay, who does similar things, really. He does mention. I know he spoke about navigation, celestial navigation, but he doesn't go into it too deeply. He will skirt over the subject, a bit like Whitsitt used to do. Yeah, Earth's measured flat, and then just talk about a load of nonsense, not really stay on that point. And that's what I sort of noticed with a lot of these so-called flat earthers who have got channels and, promoting our Earth is not a globe and measured flat. They don't really get into the down to the bare bones of it. What I was highlighting.
Did you say he even got on with Brian? I don't believe you.
Yeah, I
Definitely
was
a shield,
surprised too.
Where is Brian today?
Where were they at? Yeah, when he was on
He's
a
at
show,
the
didn't he?
Wheeler.
Just cafe,
It was
just
when
having a
Brian
scone and
was
tea.
first talking about pitch data. Sorry.
You go
No, sorry,
first,
mate. I was
Foxy.
being facetious. You go ahead.
No, I was just saying when Brian was on a show back, I think this was around the holidays too, wasn't it? They were just discussing pitch data and all that, and it was a good show. It was very entertaining, and Brian got a lot of good information out to people that probably never heard it before.
Yeah, I remember watching that. Yeah, and that's what you've got to do. Like Nathan on the podcast the other day, jumping on, and he said he listened to it. He got on there. There might be a lot of other people in that audience who've not listened to Nathan at all or for a while, and was like hearing these things that they'd not heard before and thinking, I'm going to jump over to Nathan's and have a listen to this. This sounds interesting. So you've got to go on you've got to try and get on these other platforms, haven't you? And have a chat when you can. Spread the word.
Yeah, I mean, I gained half a dozen subs from going on that show, which is always nice. Small diaphragm condenser microphones, matched pair. Very nice. Sontronics.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right, though. I mean, I could just keep saying about, a bit latitude. How was latitude measured? I can keep going over that and celeste navigation and the Mariner's sextant and the horizon mirror using the horizon, Slavish horizontal, sea level being the basis 0 degree baseline for all Earth measurements. But we're just purely talking about geometry there. Now, I don't mind keep saying that, but there's only so many times you can say it. And I think that Nathan was right. Some people might be thinking, well, we want that discussion about gravity, Newtonian gravity that's out of date by 110 or 11 years. We want to still talk about that. Or, laser tests or, other things, the ice wall, the other lands over the ice wall, what's over there, the treaty, the speculation stuff, the feast of nonsense, we call it. Which is interesting. You can talk about that, but it's nothing to do with the measurement of Earth. I think people do like to go into that side of it sometimes and, philosophize or just use their imagination and speculate about things. I think we all do, don't we? But, I mean, if you're on the show sticking to the geometry, that's what we're talking about, and we've got it down to a fine art now.
Let's check this works. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Is it nice and clear?
Sounds good, yeah.
This is Sontronics omnidirectional small diaphragm condenser microphone. I'm just going to test the other one.
Yeah, we really get into the science of geometry here.
There's Neil today. I've not heard Neil. Usually on having a chat. Must be grafting, eh?
You there, Neil? This is the other one. Does this one sound okay?
Are you
Yeah, keep
walking the
talking.
dog, or is the dog
Check.
walking you?
Is the dog walking Neil? Here, boy. Here, boy.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, well, they come with omnicapsules, so I can do AB stereo with them. Not that I might ever need to do AB stereo or use them as drum overheads or whatever, but two matching. I always buy them in the idea that I'll keep them. In other words, if they don't sell, you're like, I love them. They're nice. I buy things that I want, and then they're a lot easier to sell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, if you like something or you're passionate about something, you can put more into it, can't you? You like to talk about things that you're passionate about. You can sell things that you're passionate about because you're passionate about it and you know about it. You can talk about it and sell it quite well, yeah.
Well, in this instance, I'm back on my Neumann now, but in this instance, I have no need for drum overhead mics. I haven't got any drums, and I'm not a drummer. But in my mind, I'm like, they would make exceptionally good drum overhead mics for my studio that I run. I don't run a studio. I'm in a studio, but I don't run a studio. I've not got people coming around with drums. So I don't need drum overhead mics. But these are very nice drum overhead mics. Anyway, I'll stop talking about mics. 70 people watching. Woo-hoo-hoo! That's more than we've had in a while, I've got to be honest. Really appreciate all the people who've tuned in live. If you haven't done so already, please smash the share button. It's literally just 2 clicks and you can let all your friends know on Bebo. I'm watching Nathan Oakley 1980 live right now as we speak. So please share the show. Smash that share button if you've not done so already. If you have, thank you very much for sharing the show. It's the only reason we've got 75 people watching. Watching me unbox microphones.
Have you done any?
Go ahead.
Have you done a video or anything, Nathan?
A video about what?
I mean, have you critiqued anything today?
No, we talked a little bit about Jaren. It was my motivation to have a show is just number one because I like having a show, number two because I'm poor, and that's immediately been resolved by people who've taken pity on me and sent me super chats and PayPal. So I'm really pleased about that. But moreover, it's just I've got to give credit where credit's due to Craig. Click OK Computers on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Well, he was talking about Jaren in a way that just really did make me think. Now, I know Neil's immediately poo-pooed it and gone, you won't sat on the plane with them and don't apologise for him. And I'm like, no, I don't mind. I can be empathetic to people's cause. And having known Jaren for literally years, I know that he's kind of shallow and interested in his views. Like I say, I took great pleasure in telling him I got more than he had. Because I know it's very deep and near and dear to him. Now, as a mate, that's how you rib your mates, right? You have a little jab. Well, I've got more than you. Not that I was thinking about it until he brought it up, because at the time he's comparing himself to me and going, I'm better than you. Oh, really? So based on your view count, you're better than me? Well, if that's the case, and I've got more, I must be better than you then, eh, Jaren? Now, I don't actually think that way, but when someone's trying to shove it in your face that they're more popular than you are, and it turns out you've got more views than they have, obviously you're going to mention it in passing. But in so doing, Craig's like, well, what's his motivation? What do people do when they're motivated to be popular? Well, they'll take the popular route, they'll sell out. It doesn't mean that they're paid by the government, it doesn't mean they're shills, it just means he wants to be popular. Well, to be back on the ball means you get less ridicule. I mean, it sounds like he's only getting 20 viewers now rather than 4,000 if we were to believe the Waxy numbers, but it seems a bit extreme. You're not buying Waxy?
Yeah, no, 4,000's a lot. But he was having some popping live streams back before all that. There was a lot of traction he was getting because it was a big deal. People that never even heard of Flat Earth were talking about it. So he was doing good there for a minute.
I don't listen to him. What's he
Some wasn't listening. Witsit was having some heavy live streams then at that point too. I think everybody involved was.
No, I found it's nothing major. That's why I asked about the video. I found something the other day. It's like when we was talking about, we've done the surveyors one and the straight and level flight. There was another one going on. Do you know, like we talk about being in hell and how the ball was created from flat Earth measurements? I found something, and there's some things on there. There's a guy explaining about coordinates and the grid, and latitude and longitude and great circles and not so great circles. But he's explaining it on a show. He's not a glober or an anti-flat earther. He's just explaining this. But because we know what we know, when you're listening to him explain it and show you some diagrams, you're thinking, well, you're explaining how it's measured flat, and you're telling people that you've got to be in the center of Earth to get the angle from the plane inside the ball, not realizing that that's impossible, that you can't do that. And he's just explaining it to an audience thinking that this is normal. This is how we do it. So
Wanda, he has illustrations and diagrams of the equatorial plane. Does he have actual photographs?
Well, their equatorial plane is like the one on screen now. So just for my audience's benefit, in this diagram, the equatorial plane is the plane that would bifurcate this ball at the limitations of the equator. I'm saying equatorial like equator. At the equator, which is the minimum elevation angle to Polaris, right? Well, that is then extended out to the celestial plane. But for them to say, well, can we see their equatorial plane? Well, no, it's in hell. You can't get photographs of that.
There isn't a guided tour?
I'll pop it in Master B. It's about, if you go to about 6.5 minutes, then he gets onto, there's loads of little bits, but it's probably too boring to watch all, but he'll start talking about how latitude's measured, then he'll mention the grid, and then you'll understand it when you hear how he's sort of contradicting himself without realising, if you want to have a listen.
When you say it's in Master B,
I'll put it up for a couple of minutes.
Whereabouts in
I'll
Master
do
B?
it in a minute, but I'm going to do it in a minute. But you only need to listen to a few minutes.
Na 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 na. Have you done it yet? Maybe we could cover it tomorrow.
Yeah, it's there now.
Oh, is it there now? Okay. Have a little looky.
I think about 6 minutes or something. He starts, or just about 6.5 minutes. He'll start. But he just sort of contradicts himself, and
It's just a PlayStation ad. You carry on.
yeah, he talks about the grid system and using grid systems and XY axis and the coordinate systems and the things, and then tries to sort of say, well, we can use this on the globe now. This is how it's used on the globe. It's similar to measuring angles on a flat plane, but this is how we do it on a globe, and it's just like, it's laughable.
Okay, so we're starting at the 5 minute 55 seconds, and he's immediately got flat Earth directionalities with north, south, east, and west on it. Yeah, is that where we're starting?
Yeah, and then you can go a little bit further probably, but around 6 minutes, I think he gets into latitude. But you'll pick up.
Well,
on
longitude,
any of it, I think, if you let.
It is used to express how far east or west a point is. Let's take a closer look at the reference axes used in this system. As in the Cartesian system,
He's using an AI voiceover, which just annoys me. Ugh.
2 reference axes are used from which latitude and longitude are measured. These axes are the equator line and the Greenwich meridian.
Okay, so showing it like we would describe it as being a glorified protractor. So if you've got the equator, and then you've got the angle measurement from the centre, like I just showed in that diagram, it would come out, and then these degree measurements are your degrees around the protractor. Yeah?
Now, in order to understand how this reference axes are defined, first we have to look at the definition of great circle and small circle. A great circle is a plane on a sphere which passing through its center.
Right, a plane on a sphere? What? You don't have planes on spheres. That's a contradiction in terms for a start.
Divides it into two equal parts as we can see in this example.
Oh, what you mean is this is the equatorial plane. That's not on a sphere. That's in a sphere. Aviation theory, you're an idiot because you just said a plane on a sphere. No. What you are is in a protractor on a plane. And if you think that the ball Earth is real, then you're in hell inside a ball on a flat plane measuring angles to the sun through your globe, which is just basically a protractor. But you said a plane on a sphere. No, wrong. Just flat out incorrect. And even your diagram proves how wrong you are with that phraseology when you get your AI bot to do your voiceover for you.
It is important to note that we can divide the Earth in any direction.
Oh, can you? Really? So you can slice up an Earth that's spherical in your mind's eye imagination of a ball that's come from flat plate. You can divide it up, can you? No, reification fallacy. No, you're not dividing up Earth. On the contrary, unless you're mining, perhaps. But I wouldn't really call that dividing up Earth, like you must do to your ball in this example, where you're cutting it in half to make it function with the flat plane you need for the angles.
As long as it is divided into two equal parts.
Hands up who's divided Earth into two equal parts. Nobody ever! But we do measure Earth flat on the equatorial plane that we must measure for angles to form the latitude grid. But you must divide your ball into two. Do all the ballers recognise this nonsensical contradiction in terms when it comes to actually measuring Earth's surface inside a ball? Do you all recognise how stupid it is to suggest that to make your ball function, you've got to literally cut it in half to get a plane that you can measure? No, in reality, we just measure the plane of Earth's surface as a plane for angles, like Simon Dan did 1,000 times.
We will obtain a great circle. On the other hand, a small circle is a plane on a sphere which do not passes through its center, and
if it's a plane on a sphere and you draw a chord line and cut off a slice of Earth, again, that's in a sphere, not on a sphere. But what you need is a flat planar surface to measure angles from. Notice how none of these are measuring a ball surface. So Dan said we don't only measure Earth flat. Yeah, we do. Even when you think you're on a ball, you measure Earth flat. You have to take slices off your ball. Now, how many people, hands up, just by a show of hands in the comments, ballers, that is, how many of you have taken a slice off Earth and developed a chord line? None of you, because it's not possible. No, but you do measure Earth flat. It's a prerequisite for Earth measurement.
And therefore divides it into two unequal parts.
So you all done this? You all cut off a little chunk of Earth, have you? No.
So in other words, any circle on the Earth that is
not on the Earth. Why do you keep saying that? Right, I take umbrage with this shit now. I'm getting very irritated very quickly. Idiot. You are lying to your audience. You're deceiving them. It's not on a ball when you're using it as a glorified protractor, or in this case, chord line, where you're slicing off a segment. No, what you're doing is you're creating a flat plane, because that's how Earth gets measured. You keep saying on a ball. There are no planes on balls. It's one of a ball's defining features, that it doesn't have any flat surfaces. But what's that? We must have a flat surface when we measure Earth. So you're going to decide that you can describe Earth as a sphere and then cut it in half? Or cut it off at a chord line? You can't. Idiot. Deceiver of men. Give him 87,000 subscribers.
Is not a great circle, will be a small circle. Here we can see some examples of great and small circles.
Again, are we doing this? Are we dividing up Earth? No, what we're doing is we're measuring off a plane with areas of equal altitude, like in all the diagrams I show. You're never measuring on Earth for any of this, is he? Not one of these has come from a curved Earth surface, because there isn't one. What you do need to measure Earth flat is to create a flat surface in a ball, which is precisely what he's describing whilst lying about it being on the ball. No, it isn't on the ball surface. None of these are on the ball, so not one of them.
He's just, like you say, Nathan, he's just, they'll all need a horizontal plane for measurements on Earth. He's explaining that that's correct and showing a globe. You know, we've got a globe, but we've got to measure it all flat and horizontal. But there'll be people in the audience just watching that and not realizing we understand this contradiction because this is what we're pointing out. Our Earth is measured flat. But there'll be people watching this thinking, well, yeah, but they're not clicking, not understanding this contradiction. You know what I mean?
The equator line is defined as a great circle perpendicular to the Earth's axis of rotation.
So the great circle, perpendicular. No, you don't have perpendicular on a ball. There's no perpendicular to a ball. There's only a flat surface with a horizontal and a vertical for it to be described as perpendicular. But when you describe your equator, it's got to bifurcate a ball. Yes, because you can't functionally measure Earth as a ball. You can only ever and will only ever measure Earth flat.
Rotation, which divides the Earth into two equal.
No, we're never dividing Earth into anything. We're just measuring areas of equal elevation with Polaris to create an equator that's a circle and flat, derived from an angle to a Polaris that's measured off a flat surface. You can then convert it into a sphere that you stand within and then lie to an audience about being on a ball. You're not. But you need to create a flat plane in a ball.
Hemispheres. And if we compare it to the Cartesian system, it would be the equivalent to the x-axis. On the other hand, the Greenwich meridian, also known as the prime meridian, is defined as a semi-great circle that joins the North and South poles and passes through Greenwich in England. This would be the equivalent to the y-axis in a Cartesian system.
Right, how many times has anybody seen Greenwich carved up and placed inside a ball? Now, I'm pretty sure Greenwich is on the flat surface of Earth that we measure. So, idiot, no, that we don't have to carve Earth as a ball up to measure from Greenwich. That's idiotic, isn't it? But we do measure from Greenwich, and we do have latitude. Yeah, we're going to measure Earth flat. Your justification and apologies for how ball-shaped it isn't when you create a flat surface within the ball and lie about it being on the ball are just what you need to do as a baller with your delusional belief in a ball. Meanwhile, we do definitely measure Earth flat for this.
With this, we have the two reference axes that are used in the geographic coordinates system. However, these axes are also used to divide the Earth into four hemispheres. This way, the equator line divides the Earth into the northern and southern hemispheres, while the prime meridian divides it into the western and the eastern hemispheres.
Is there anything else, or is that about it?
Yeah, it does go about latitude long. I think you've got the idea of it. It does go into the latitude and cutting the Earth open and getting angles from inside it, but I think you get the gist of it.
Well, no,
we don't have to go any further, mate.
We'll get a bit more. Just tell me when to stop.
Now, due to the size of the Earth, it is common to use secondary reference lines known as parallels and meridians. The meridians are semi-great circles that join the North and South poles, and they are measured in degrees in relation to the prime meridian.
So Earth's just a glorified protractor then? With the equator bifurcating a sphere Earth that you'd stand on a flat plane within called the equatorial plane and describe degree measurements around a protractor around your position on a flat plane, but for you in hell. Now, nobody's inside a ball in hell bifurcating a sphere Earth to do this. We're just standing on the flat surface measuring angles. And the angles are marked out on your ball. So you'll have to measure from within the ball to make these angles make sense. Ergo, we do measure Earth flat on what he's describing as an equatorial plane. Now, I won't get into the massive distortions that we experience in the south, but the system in the north is definitely derived from a Polaris-centric system, measured flat, to create this ball, with the degrees wrapped around you when inside it as a glorified protractor.
These lines are used as a reference for the longitude. On the other hand, the parallels are small circles parallel to the equator line, which are measured in degrees in relation to the equator line. These lines are used as a reference for the latitude. The resulting grid defined by the parallels and meridians is known as the geographic gradation.
Sorry, when has east and west been perpendicular to north and south? It seems this man doesn't understand how a compass works when he changes north and south into up and down when bifurcating a ball into a burger. No. North, south, east and west are all flat planar directions. North is not up. Now, you can describe it as being up if you convert your angle measurement at 0 degrees zenith for Polaris into the north, but it isn't. North, point north. Is it up? If you're in my audience, point north. It is not up. Meanwhile, you do need to stand on this plane in order to measure the angles that he had up on screen earlier to have the degree measurements marked around a glorified protractor. You idiots who think we measure from within a sphere. We don't. We measure from a flat plane to stars in the sky. And there's no ball between you and Polaris when you measure it flat with angles. That doesn't mean north is above you. It never will be. This man's a liar.
Or grid, which is often found on maps and charts.
He keeps mentioning the X and Y axis as well, Nathan, doesn't he? That's like a horizontal reference, isn't it?
Yes, Cartesian. It's two-dimensional. It's more Brian Street than mine, but yeah.
He's referencing that and then saying this is happening on a globe, which is impossible.
It's fundamentally not true. You can't put a two-dimensional grid with latitude and longitude two-dimensional onto a ball. It's not possible. You have to bastardize north and south and call them up and down. You notice how we've also got him using compasses that are absolutely flat at various points in the video. I've got one up on this little scroll thumbnail. I mean, in this diagram, you've got all of the different directionalities two-dimensionally depicted. But yeah, in this one on screen, it's three-dimensionally depicted with a two-dimensional grid. No, this doesn't work. Simple as. Earth must be flat to have north, south, east and west function as they do, horizontally, like on a compass.
Having seen all this, let's now look at the definition of latitude and longitude.
One, Gorilla Grab and Seal, the multitask master.
The latitude is defined as the angular distance between the equator line and a point on the Earth's surface.
Oh, well, what have we here? This is the point you wanted us to get to, isn't it, Wandek?
Yeah.
Notice how what I say quite frequently about having the ball Earth be a giant, glorified, bleeding protractor. Well, what do we have here? We've got a ball Earth lying shitbag talking about how Earth as a sphere is a glorified protractor, where you must stand inside hell to measure a latitude angle off a planar surface to convert to a flat map. Well, are we measuring from hell to get latitude? No, it's a flat planar measurement, like Simon Dan was making, surface level measurements to the sun. Now, in this case, it's not the sun like Simon Dan measured flat thousands of times. It's a Polaris measurement. But from within a ball? Now, this just kind of turns this flat plane that we're measuring the angle for surface level into a glorified protractor that you're never going to stand within to create a flat plane that you need when we measure Earth flat. Yeah? There's never going to be any circumstance where we get away from these facts of life that Earth is measured flat. But you ball-believing clowns can somehow justify being in a ball using your ball as a giant protractor? No, we just measure Earth flat. Is there anything more to this?
Not really. He's just explaining what isn't happening and trying to say that, you know, like we're pointing out all the time, you need a flat horizontal plane. It's not being measured from inside a ball, we call hell. It's on the surface of Earth. But this guy's explaining it to people. This is how it's happening. And people are just listening to this thinking, well, yeah, this is how it's done. It must be done from the centre of Earth. It's ridiculous.
So here's an angle measurement to the sun. Now, it doesn't matter if this is Polaris or the sun in this example of an elevation angle measurement from surface level. The surface level forms the horizontal, and your zenith forms the vertical. And if you drew a protractor around your position with respect to the flat sky that you're measuring, with degrees that measure to the horizon at 0 and behind you at 180, that makes this angle measurement capable of description with a giant protractor around you. Now, what you can do is call this surface level measurement of Polaris, or in this case, Simon Dan's measurement of the sun off a flat Earth thousands of times. You can pretend That's inside a ball. If you're a numpty clown with a religious belief you were indoctrinated with in your school system. Meanwhile, latitude does not come from hell. Latitude gets measured like this. Off surface level with an angle to a light in the sky. There's no ball between you and the light in the sky we call Polaris. There's just a flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle measurement that we do and can and must measure off a flat Earth. For you to pretend that you're standing in a ball that's a protractor. We're not. Earth's measured flat.
Measured in degrees, minutes and seconds of arc.
Off a flat Earth. Yeah, when you measure your degrees, that's a flat Earth prerequisite. Here it is on screen. This is why Simon Dan said, and I quote, "We don't only measure Earth flat." Yeah, we do, Dan. You only measured Earth flat 1,000 times with this, an elevation angle measurement to the sun. Or this, an elevation angle measurement off the flat equatorial plane we actually stand upon if you're deriving circles of equal elevation with Polaris. Then your latitude comes from hell. Not measuring on a ball. Notice how we're not taking a slice of it at a chord line either. We're taking it from the equatorial plane. That's the area of equal elevation formed with Polaris measurement off a flat Earth that is now inside hell. You ballers are idiots. And you will and must and do measure Earth flat. Suddenly we're not on a ball anymore. We're on a flat plane inside a ball. Yeah. For you numpties who think the ball's got anything to do with it, it doesn't. Your ball's nothing more than a glorified protractor, and here it is on screen by demonstration. Earth is and can only be measured flat. Here's a latitude measurement of a flat plane. This ball Earth has nothing to do with your world. You're not on the surface. Clearly, doesn't work with the angle measurement. And do we use latitude in everyday life? Yeah, we do. Are we in the ball in everyday? No, we're not in a ball. This lying shitbag told you that it was a plane on a ball because he's a liar. Aviation theory, the lying scumbag. Yeah, to whoever that was. Or don't. We'll get a couple more seconds.
Arc. So in simpler words, it measures how far north or how far south a point is.
What, from in a ball? No, you're not measuring how flat and north something is, because north, according to the diagram you had up earlier, is above you. You described north as being above a point that you were describing in this diagram, if I can find the bloody thing. There. No, north's not up. When you measure Polaris, it's not pointing north. If it's at your zenith, if you're at this position and Polaris is above you, that's not north. North is never up. Ever.
Now, as we can see in the image on the left,
we're measuring a flat Earth.
The latitude is actually an angle measured from the center of the Earth.
No. So how many times, ballers, have you measured Polaris from in hell? Oh, never. Oh, how do we measure Polaris? Oh, with an elevation angle measurement off surface level? Yeah. So to translate it to this diagram, where's the surface level that we get the angle measurement from? Well, it's here, this flat plane, with the globe Earth being a glorified protractor around your position that you measure Polaris with. Here's the angle measurement. But lying shitbag aviation theory says that you measure Polaris from within a ball in hell. Nobody is ever going to measure Polaris from in a ball that you said you were on with a flat plane being on it. Liar. No, this isn't how we measure Earth. Nobody's in a ball measuring Polaris. Earth is measured from a flat plane to develop the system that gets turned into a ball when you wrap it around your position like the globe Earth's a giant protractor. It isn't. We just measure Earth flat. What's that, Dan? We don't only measure Earth flat. Yeah, we do. Here's an example of it. This man seemed to suggest that we measure Polaris from hell on a flat plane because we only measure Earth flat. It's never from hell. But it is from the flat plane described in this diagram, though. That's how we measure latitude.
Crazy, innit?
Yep.
Crazy, innit? Absolute craziness to suggest and put diagrams up that we're measuring to the luminaries from the centre of Earth. Who in the right mind believes that this is happening?
Good question. Who in their right mind thinks they're measuring angles from hell? I'll tell you. Thunderfoot, who justified it in exactly the same way. And we do some maths and then we're measuring from hell. Right, Thunderfoot, you abject clown? Yeah, all of you Muppets think that this angle measurement from a flat plane surface with the surface level forming part of the angle actually takes place in a ball. That this guy has lied to you about. Well, he said that it was on the ball. No, it wasn't, was it? Never was, never will be, and can't be. Earth can only afford you this measurement from a flat surface. Exactly as diagrammatically detailed. It's just you think that you're measuring from within a ball on hell's surface of a flat plane. No, you're not. You can't. It's ludicrous. We do measure Earth flat, though, as being detailed here. Here's the flat surface that you're measuring. Here's the angle that you measure. It is this angle. From the surface level to a light in the sky, be it the sun or Polaris in this instance. So we definitely can measure this off a flat plane. Nobody's in hell. It's just that simple. Earth is and can only be measured flat. Good choice of video. Anything anyone wants to add before I round out this live stream? No?
Yeah, that's stupid
No.
question.
Go ahead. Whoever that was.
Basically calling it stupid. But yeah, so don't the globe surveyors acknowledge that they're like they're creating, you know, this small circle and calling it flat? Where does the point where they're turning it into being in the center of the ball come from?
It doesn't. You're never going to be in the center of a ball.
Yeah, but their math, I guess it only works if they do.
Sorry, I'll just say it one more time. You're never going to be in hell to, quote, make it work. You can't measure from hell. Is that clear?
I know that. But I'm saying that the surveyors acknowledge that they're standing on the ball and they have like a local ball, like local flat thing that they refer it to.
Again,
as.
no. Like he said, you saying the surveyors say they stand on a ball on a plane? No, that's a contradiction in terms there are no planes on balls. One of the defining features of a ball is that it has no flat surfaces at all ever. And even if you suggest that you're taking a tangential measurement to Polaris, here's a diagrammatical example of how it, quote, works in a ball on a plane that you're never going to measure from. But you do measure from a plane on a circle of equal elevation. That means same height at all levels of a two-dimensional circle with the circle forming part of the angle. It's surface level. But you're saying, well, the globe surveyors, there's no such beast. There's just surveying. And all surveying measures Earth flat with horizontal distance measurement. There is no globe surveying. Ever.
Hey, Nathan.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I already know that. It's flat. I'm just confused about the part where it becomes like the part where they're changing their math to be like in the center, even though they acknowledge that they're on top of it when they're taking the measurements.
They're not. You can't take measurements and create a plane from a ball. There's no making measurements from Earth's surface if you create a tangent plane. Then it's not from the surface anymore.
I don't even know what a tangent plane means. So you have, much higher level of understanding than most of the people.
Sure.
So I don't know what even a tangent means.
Sure, but the point is that there never is going to be a measurement of a spherical surface to achieve an angle. You can't get an angle from a curved surface, can you?
Yeah, I know. Right. So when they pretend that they can, my confusion comes from basically like how does it later when they show their maths, when they're showing these measurements that I understand it was taken on a flat surface, but in their minds they're presenting it as globe proof. So I'm just confused where they get to the point where they're like on the top of the Earth, taking obviously a flat Earth measurements, and in their mind it's okay to measure it flat even because it's like this small space. How does it later get translated to them having to be like in the center of the Earth?
It doesn't.
Wouldn't it be like really obvious to anyone looking at this?
Yes. Yes, that's what we're doing now.
In the center, and the measurements weren't even taken there.
Yes, that's what the guys just said. That's our point of this video. Yeah, you're never getting it to function unless you're utilizing the equatorial plane, the globe as a protractor, and the extended celestial sphere that works from the centre of hell, with Earth being the giant protractor. Now, if you say, well, how do they get from suggesting they measure it on the surface of a globe? Well, they just say that they're getting it from the surface of a sphere. But ultimately, when they lie about measuring angles from spheres, which is utterly ludicrous, you can never get an angle from a curved surface. Well, they suggest that they're getting it from a tangential plane, but that's still just measuring a flat plane, and it is not measuring a ball surface. And even when they do that, they still have to transpose that inside hell to get it to actually function with the extended celestial plane, the celestial sphere, and Earth as a glorified protractor. So they're never going to measure an angle from their curved surface. They will only ever measure from a planar surface, and then suggest that that's plonked tangential to a ball that they're not measuring and won't give them an angle measurement from the surface.
Let's just say something, Nathan.
Hold on, just let this guy finish.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just acknowledging it's like a sleight of hand thing that I know there's some Globers that come in here most of the time, like I guess I don't want to call out a name, but there is someone in here that writes in the chat a lot, but is always listening. I just confused how they can see this happen and like just witness like the sleight of hand where like here's the measurements where they were taken, and then here's where they have to be for it to actually make sense. I don't know how they can still like, you know, fall for this stuff.
But what House DeJello is asking is, how do you idiots cope with this bullshittery? That's what he's asking. How do you see this sleight of hand and go, yeah, that's okay. I'm cool with it working in hell when we don't measure from a ball. We pretend that we're measuring from a tangent that isn't Earth's surface, so we can later transpose it into a ball as a glorified protractor. How do you idiots cope with this? Is the question. And my answer would be, well, with all the money that they make, because they're promoted by YouTube's algorithm. So we will hope that their compensation for not coping with the facts that we don't measure a ball surface ever for anything functional, we only ever measure Earth flat, be a claim to be tangential plane that isn't their surface, that later must be transposed into hell on a flat plane. How do they cope? Well, probably with the new car and the fact that they haven't had to pay 2 mortgages like I have. That's how they cope. With money.
So one of them just wrote in the chat that you can do it because the stars are so far away that your distance from the center doesn't introduce a significant error.
So distance from the center. So in this numpty dickhead chat commenter's mind, it's okay because the distance from center. When did you measure that, chat skank? Did you go to hell to get that measurement to make it work? No, never. You won't. But in his mind, that squares the circle. It's okay to say that the celestial sphere is at an infinite distance. There was me thinking that you got light years ascribed in your ball nonsense that came from flat Earth measurements in the first instance, with areas of equal altitude measured from Polaris off a flat plane, to derive your radial value, to convert it into statistics with Kepler and Huygens that give you actual distances. What's that? Haven't you got an actual measurement to the stars? How high are the stars? Infinitely high. Wow, that's a total fail. There was me thinking that you described them after measuring Earth flat with Polaris and its minimum for your radial value. Or maybe you prefer to appeal to Al-Biruni and his height off a flat Earth, deriving with trig a radial value with a dip angle calculation. I mean, that dip angle calculation below the surface level you measured flat means that you have to still go into hell to make it work with stars that you can't ascribe distances to. This is a massive fail. How do they cope, you ask? Oh, well, they get paid lots and lots of money. And we have to live in poverty for pointing out that how we measure Earth flat. End of statement. There's nothing else to add to that. It's just how we measure Earth flat. Because we do. But that means I don't get any money, and they do. So they cope because they get paid to cope. Any more? Any other comments? Thank you very much. That was a good series of questions.
Yep, sure.
Go ahead.
He's still writing in the chat responding to you. I don't know if you want to look at it.
He can join the show. There's a link. You're talking to me because you've clicked that link and joined, right?
Yeah, he doesn't use his microphone. It's
Then he can suck on my proverbial. Don't use your mic, wanker. Then sling your bloody hook. I couldn't give a crap. You have to measure from within hell. It's on screen. It's just been explained by someone with 82,000 subscribers. Now, he said on a ball multiple times, but he never showed it, did he? Why? Because you can't measure from the surface of a ball and achieve an angle. What kind of angle? Well, this angle. The one that Simon Dan measured 1,000 times off a flat planar surface. That's the only way you get it to measure. What's that? It can work with infinitely distant stars in a ball? No, it won't. What's that? You can't come and tell me this in person. You might don't work. And get lost. And I give a crap. If you want to tell me I'm wrong about this 82,000 strong subscriber-based channel called Aviation Theory and how he's showing it working in a ball with a glorified protractor you think is the globe Earth you're standing on, if you're standing on it, why aren't you ever measuring it? Well, because you can't get angles. You can't do this on a ball. You need a flat Earth. You need a flat Earth more than we do. And when you're using it in hell, you say the stars are infinite. So you haven't got distances from Kepler and Huygens then after measuring an equatorial plane with Polaris off a flat Earth? No, we know. We've been saying it for quite some time. But we get censored for pointing out that Earth is only ever measured flat for these angles on screen. Yeah, that means I have to be suppressed. I have to have all of my monetary income from YouTube ad revenue limited in a massive capacity because me pointing out, like this dude, the Earth is being measured flat, described as flat, and only functions from a flat equatorial plane in a globe that becomes a glorified protractor, then I have to be censored. Whereas this guy will lie and say that it's come from the surface. The plane surface of a globe. Contradiction in terms. He can get promoted. He can grow to 82,000 subscribers. I can't. That's the reality. So it's just monetary incentives that give these people the impetus to put out crap where they lie about measuring from a globe surface. He hasn't. He can't. You can't get an angle from a globe. Any more for any more? One deck, you were trying to get a word in. Go ahead.
It's okay. I was just, when the gentleman was talking, I was just going to, I thought he was trying to get to the point was there is a system called is it the WGS 84 system? It's just a mathematical model that they use, World Geodetic System 84, that when it was created. And they've accepted this as the model. So when the surveyors and anybody who's measuring the surface of Earth take the elevation angles, then it's mathematically adjusted and put into the accepted mathematical model, WGS 84. Brian's pretty good at all that, but it's just a mathematical concept after measuring the angle of a flat horizontal plane. That's all I was going to say.
Perfect. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live, and there's going to be no after show, but today's show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you as well in the audience for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, hitting me up on PayPal and via Super Chat and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.